Kia ora, and welcome to Bus Days. Today I'm going to show you how to make gingerbread buses. So it all starts with some templates. I've got some here simply made out of paper. So I've worked it out. That's the bus shape approximately for the side. I want them to be freestanding essentially on wheels, so I'm not going to stick them down to like you would normally with a gingerbread house. So I have to have a base for the bus, so that it actually has a floor of the bus which will sit up off the ground. Then I've got a roof which doubles as a back template for the back, windscreen and a front. So that's basically it. I'm going to have a couple of trimming bits that will sit underneath the bus in behind the wheels where the axles would be to lift the bus up. That's the plan. So let's get into it. Now the recipe is quite simple really. In this bowl I have my dry ingredients, most of my dry ingredients, which is brown sugar, about 1.5 cups, a tablespoon of baking soda, a tablespoon of ginger, and a teaspoon of cinnamon. Sometimes I put in some cloves, it's optional, adds a bit of extra spice, Christmassy spice to it. Not today, however. So to go in here will be 2/3 cup of molasses. Actually, I don't really like molasses, so I'm going to use a little bit and mostly golden syrup, which is much more mild. And together with that, for the rest of the liquids, I'm going to use about 3/4 cup of cream, which I will whip to firm peaks. But before I add the liquids, I'm just going to whip up these dry ingredients to get all the flavours mixed together and get rid of any lumps. So in goes my molasses golden syrup mix. Like I say, you can mix it at whatever concentration you like. I'm not a big fan of molasses, so I've put maybe about 1/2 cup of golden syrup, topped up to 2/3 cup with molasses. You could use entirely molasses, entirely golden syrup, that's up to you. Needs to be liquid, needs to be sugar. This is about 3/4 cup of cream that I have whipped till, as you can see, is fairly firm, with a little vanilla. So I'm just going to mix this all together and then we'll open it out. With any baking, you need to scrape down the sides of the bowl. Even if it looks mixed on top, there could be stuff at the bottom that has just not picked up and is not mixed in at all. And back on the mixer for a little longer. This looks well mixed in now, so I'm going to add the flour. I'm just going to use all-purpose flour, 4 to 5 cups, maybe 4.5. We'll see how we go, see how it feels. Obviously want it to be kind of doughy, not too wet, so that depends a little bit on the condition of your flour. Mine's fairly new, so it should be fairly dry, so hopefully get away with 4.5 cups. So I'm going to add the flour with the mixer running, just a bit at a time. Let that mix in, then I'll add some more. One of the tricks that you could use when adding flour, especially when you've got a few cups to do, it's easy to lose count. So if you measure it out into a separate bowl first, then you can't get it wrong. It also pays to sift the flour before you add it to any baking. In this case it's going to be a fairly stiff dough, so it'll probably break up any lumps anyway, but it's a good idea to sift flour. I think I'm happy with that. It's got a good texture, looks like it'll hold a shape fairly well. That's what we're going with today. So let's roll it out. So time for another trick. When you cook a big sheet of gingerbread, you kind of want it to all cook at the same speed, of course, otherwise you get dark patches, brittle patches and so on. The easiest way that I know of to do that is to use a piece of wood. A piece of wood on either side of the tray will mean that your roller will be rolling on the wood, can't press down, you'll get gingerbread at exactly that thickness. Now I have used, you've seen some of my other videos, it's actually my bendy ply, an offcut, which I really didn't think was ever going to be of any use, that little bit. Turns out excellent for gingerbread. So I'm going to end up with 4mm or just over 1/8 of an inch thick gingerbread sheets. You can use whatever sheets you want. I mean, I often go as thick as sort of 6mm, maybe 1/4 of an inch. That's really nice. Uses a lot more gingerbread and makes everything a little heavier. It takes a lot longer to cook and stuff, but I'm going with 4mm because I have 4mm ply. Most recipes might say to roll this and then transfer it over a rolling pin onto a baking tray. Yeah, no, that doesn't work. I've never had much luck with that. It always tears, so I roll directly on the baking tray. I'm using a silicone based paper so that it won't stick to it, which I know it won't stick to it, it never does. So this is the place to roll it. I'm going to rough roll it to start with out to an approximate rectangle, and then using my guides, thickness guides, I will then roll it out to exactly 4mm all the way across. This batch is looking good. 10 minutes away from being cooked. This batch is ready to roll out, and this batch is ready to go in. So these sheets have been in the oven for about half an hour. Probably firm enough now to cut the pattern into it. I find if I cut it early before putting them in the oven, it kind of gets a bit soft and rejoins. So I'm going to do that now. So after another 30-40 minutes in the oven, should be quite firm to touch. Just leave it sitting on the tray for another 5 minutes or so to kind of set, and then we'll put it onto racks for cooling. So there we go, onto a couple of cooling racks. Once it's cooled down, that can be wrapped and stored probably for several weeks, but it won't last that long here. So now it's time to assemble these. I've made a simple royal icing out of egg white and icing sugar, a little wee bit of crema tartar. The reason I use egg white is because it sets really, really hard, like concrete. So I'm just going to put these together. There's a very sophisticated method for holding the structure together. That is a bunch of fruit cans. So I just need to wait for that to set, and then I can turn it upside down and do the other bits. So here's the first two, almost done. I've got these feet glued to the bottom, or axles you might say, to lift them off the ground so they look like vehicles once I put the wheels on them. Got the tops, got the backs done in there. Now The only thing left to put on is the windscreen. I've deliberately left that off so that I can load them full of lollies. So we've brought in our master decorator.
That's me. Thanks for watching. Full recipes in the description below. If you want us to do more of these kind of videos, just leave us a comment. Otherwise, subscribe, click like. We'll see you next time. Thanks.